Romance in China. Now this is thoughtful. Hello, I'm Kitty Boo in Shanghai. Attitudes towards love, romance, dating, and marriage have changed dramatically in China. Young couples today have far more freedom than their parents or grandparents. As Richard Berger explained in his recent book, Behind the Red Door, Sex in China, marriages based on romance and love were practically unheard of in China from ancient times until the 1980s. Casual dating may be accepted today, but the courtship process and marriage remain rooted in Chinese traditions. This week, we'll take a closer look at the trends shaping views on love and marriage in China, already the world's largest wedding market. And Patrick Behrens, Executive Assistant Manager of Food and Beverage at the Peninsula Hotel in Shanghai, will tell us about some of the hot trends he has seen at Chinese weddings lately. But first, we'll share an interview with Rebecca Ip, VP of Greater China at Tiffany, filmed during the Market to Watch, Building Brands Beyond Tier 1 in China conference, organized by Thoughtful China and Advertising Age earlier this year. Rebecca, thanks for being on Thoughtful China today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Tell me something. How important is wedding ring to your business?
Oh, it's extremely important. Tiffany has a diamond authority positioning, and so when our clients think of diamonds, they think of our engagement ring. So of course the engagement ring is different with what we know of the engagement ring in the West, because here in China, the man doesn't actually get down on one knee to propose to the woman. It's a little bit more pragmatic. The woman goes to the store with actually their partner and they choose the ring together. And it's still very romantic though.
That can be romantic?
Yes, it's very romantic because we listen in on when they're talking and talking to one another, and they talk about their love and when they're choosing the ring that they prefer, which represents the milestone in their life.
That actually makes a lot of sense if you think in terms of the man is buying the ring to please the woman. So when the woman is there picking the ring, she will be happy.
She feels that that's how much he loves her.
So in terms of the metal and stone used for wedding rings or engagement rings, do you see that changing, say, over the past 10 years in China?
I have seen a lot of changes. In the past, the bridal jewelry was always gold, and probably yellow gold and the traditional yellow gold that we know as the 24-karat gold. And today, a lot of the young women actually would want their white metal, mostly platinum, when they're choosing their engagement ring or their diamond ring. And that's because of the influence of the West, because in the publications, through communication, and that's what they want to have.
So why is that? Do people believe in white platinum because it represents a certain image?
Well, platinum is the purest, so definitely they want their love to represent that it's the purest of love as well. And on the other hand, you may know, the setting of white metal actually shows off the brilliance of the diamond.
Do you also see not just the changes in wedding rings, but also in the way that people organize their weddings?
Oh, I see that happen a lot. Today, a lot of the young women, they would prefer to have their weddings, whether it's the banquet or the ceremony held at the hotel. And a lot of the hotels today are also having bridal fairs and events to attract the young women before planning on their wedding event, to learn and to see what is on offer. So whether it's about choosing their wedding dress, it's about the bouquet that they're going to have, it's going to be about the cake that they're going to cut. So all that's part of the education, yes.
So the way weddings are done are also going Western?
They are going more Western, yes.
So do you see the wedding industry taking off in China still in the next few years?
I think it has taken off, and just to give some statistics in the last 3 years, it's grown by 10-12% every year. There are projected 13 million young couples to be married this year. So just imagine the numbers of young women selecting their dresses or their wedding rings and organizing the wedding events, whether it's the ceremony or the banquet for the family and friends. So it's growing tremendously.
With me now is Christine Ng, Managing Director of BBH China, Jin Tingting, Editor-in-Chief of iJie, the Chinese version of the leading U.S. wedding website, TheKnot.com, and Mary Bergstrom, founder of the Bergstrom Group. We actually have a very fun topic today. It's also very big business. In 2010, the wedding industry in China was $57 billion. Am I right, Jin Ting? Well, how big is it now? Did you see a huge growth in the past 2 years?
I have seen a media investigation showed that in the last year, the average cost of a wedding has been more than 200,000 RMB. It's quite expensive, you can say.
I saw some figures somewhere that it's like 10 million couples getting married each year.
Yeah.
So do the math there. It really is a very big business.
Yeah.
But Mary, I want to get your opinion on the man's perspective, for example. I don't know if it's really due to the one-child policy, but I do hear a lot of men can't find wives. So do you see that happening? How do marketers market to this group of men?
Well, I think that's just a reality that China's going to have to deal with in the near future. Because with the one-child policy, what we've ended up with is 40 million, what we expect to be so-called bare branches. So that's men who will not be able to find a wife. The challenge there is that, right now we're in this competitive state where these men are trying to be as good of a package, as good of as a potential suitor as possible. So that's where you get into, the beauty and the fashion market's really booming, and you get into the real estate, the cars, anything you can do to kind of persuade your potential mate that you're a good catch.
Right. Well, Christine, how are brands tapping into the industry they see happening in this industry which involves so many categories from fashion, jewelry, tourism, and even retail? I know you have worked with the World Gold Council. So tell me a bit more about how they view the importance of Chinese market and how they're marketing gold jewelry, for example.
I think that obviously, everybody knows that if you are in hotel industry, people have things like director of wedding, as a title in a hotel. That signify, how important this segment is to them, and I think the main thing is that people are not the industry are not just looking at the wedding day, they're looking at pre-wedding day, they're looking at post-wedding day, and if you add all that together, the business opportunity is endless. So even if you talk about 1 year before wedding, people are already looking at all the related things that leads to that day, including the house, including renovation, including facial, all the beauty packages. So it's just endless. I think World Gold Council, obviously gold is an integral part of any wedding, and China gold, very, very related. And you know that for many, many years, World Gold Council has created this thing called sifu, which is specific jewelry that they package for wedding. And they call it the 4-point gold, which is the 4点金, right? Which is what parents will buy traditionally for their daughter. As part of, it looks a bit like dowry, so that they can marry off with some gold. So, but today, the sifu and the wedding jewelry has taken a very, very new and innovative form. So you have new themes like, so it's no longer just dragon and phoenix. You have new theme like a fairy tale theme, flower theme. This just endless.
Yeah, I guess it's not just what happens on that day, it's all the build-up and it's the run-up to that big day. So what do you see in the space where people share and talk? What are the hot topics? What do people worry about, care about, or want advice on?
Yeah, we have seen several trends from wedding. First, that most of the Chinese couples, they want to combine the Western style and the traditional style together. You can find that the link of the yingqing, that means the groom have to go to the bride's home and invite her to this wedding. This is still very important for the couple. And also, they will show their respect to the parents. And also, you can...
It remains very Chinese still, where
it's very
people
Chinese.
wear qipao and you do the bowing and then giving tea or giving out hongbao or whatever to get the bride out of the room.
Yeah, the food is still very important. That's the reason why it's so difficult to find a location for the wedding. It means that mostly in Shanghai and Beijing, you have to book the hotel before 8 months. Yeah.
Book the venue 8 months in advance,
Yes.
Especially if you want an auspicious or good date, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And also the couple still is willing to please their guests. I think it's also very Chinese. That means in most wedding, they will provide the lucky draw games. And they want to make their guests happy. But also you will see that they will put more and more they will put more and more focus on the Western style. That means a lot of couple will put more emphasis on the decoration and also something like light, flowers, and also the day of photography. And this is going to be more and more important in wedding. And once I interviewed the wedding planner, he told me that the change is very big. Before 2 years, maybe the couple will tell you that I love this color, I love pink, I love purple. But now some brides will tell you that I love this element, and could you add this element to my wedding? He told me a very interesting case. A bride told him that she loves luxury bags, and she wants to add this element in her wedding. And eventually, they built a huge LV background in her wedding location, and it looks just like a LV flag store on Nanjing Xi Road. And this is very specific.
Right. So before, I think Chinese couples are more worried about, what dresses that would be wearing and the food that's served on the table, whether the guests will like them. But now it's more and more of the specific requirements.
Yeah.
It feels a bit like one big show, one big personal show whereby the star, the main star, is the bride. It feels like this, right?
Yeah,
with all the
like
entertainment within the wedding ceremony itself.
Yeah, and she wants to be the princess of the day.
Well, what is the saying? Is it the 5-minute fame? The 50, right. So the saying 15 minutes of fame, right? I shortened it a bit, right? 10 extra minutes. Yeah, everybody wants to be a star, and eventually getting married would be the opportunity for you to look good and really design the stage and your own drama, your own lines for yourself. So who wouldn't want to do that?
But I think it's more than just actually 15 minutes of fame, because really what's involved is it is a really fantastic day, and you really can create it in the form that you want it to take. But it's also a lot of money, and it's a lot of an expense, and it's a lot of energy for everyone involved. So it's not just a question in the typical Western sense of what do I want, I'm going to put it up. It's also an important occasion for the rest of the family to really broadcast their accomplishment as well.
Yeah, and they also want to create a memorable, a special memory. I think that's very important for them.
But it's a special memory for everyone.
I was just thinking that it's the big day for the couple, but it's also a very big day for the parents. Because I mean, in elsewhere in other countries, typically parents might have 2 or 3 children, and when they grow up, they probably attend 2 or 3 of their children's wedding. And in this case, this is the one wedding per parent. Right. So it's like there's only one chance. So everything is thrown into that wedding. It's not theirs. It's their child's wedding.
Nobody's going to be stingy when it comes to the only child's wedding, I guess.
That's right.
So I think also if you look at families who have their children getting married, a lot of what they're excited about is for their children, but also it's about them. So it's not only what is the bride going to wear, what is the groom going to wear, but what is the family of the bride and the groom going to wear? What is the family of the bride and groom going to do before and after the ceremony? So it really is more than just a 2-person opportunity.
Let's take a break to hear from Patrick Behrens with a thought or two about hot trends at Chinese weddings.
Many couples nowadays are looking for a one-stop solution, and hence are reaching out to an experienced wedding planner to organize this special day for them. The wedding banquet is a key element of the big day and has to be planned thoroughly to give face to respective parents-in-law and please the guests as well. A few of the more recent trends observed are more and more creative themed and elaborate setups of the reception area as well as the dining hall, featuring large backdrops with pictures of the places the couple visited together, bird cages, Garden of Eden setting, walls completely covered in white, chandeliers and elaborate flower decorations. As well, more and more couples will have an entertaining video produced with a story how they met each other, which will be shown prior to the marching of the bride and the groom in the ballroom. Generally, with more and more Chinese having been living and educated overseas, we observe a new demand towards more Western-style weddings. Couples are trying to break away a bit from the traditions and inquire for a modern Chinese dinner which is served plated rather than a traditional family-style dinner. During the dinner, couples also tend to serve wine rather than Chinese liquor, and since red is a color for celebration, so at the wedding feast red wine is far more popular than white. Another recent trend is to have a band or other live entertainer perform during the evening. Although nobody is dancing yet during the dinner, more and more couples are booking with us an after party in a more intimate atmosphere such as Salon de Ning to continue to party and dance the night away, as the majority of Chinese weddings banquets still tend to finish soon after the dinner is served. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. We're back in our studio with Christine Ng, Jin Tingting and Mary Bergstrom. Well, since the business is so big, so I could imagine there must be a lot of marketers, like a million of wedding planners trying to tap into this market. How do Chinese couples choose service providers? How do they prioritize, for example, when there's 10 million people saying that they could offer the same thing essentially? How do they choose?
This is a very good question, because you have never get married and you don't have any experience about it, so it's very difficult for you to find the right local vendors. And now in a lot of websites and also in wedding magazines, you can find the list of the local vendors. But it's also very difficult for you to find who is the best one. A lot of websites will have the list, but a lot of couples a lot of young Chinese just don't believe in it. We can just take IG for an example. We have a very popular channel whose name is My Real Weddings, and you can find thousands of real weddings in this channel, and you can just look at all the real stories and to find which one is your favorite. And then you can find who is the local vendor, who is a wedding planner, and who is a photography for this wedding.
I think this, the wedding age is the 80s generation, isn't it? Yeah. And whether it's wedding or not, they are typically, I think, the best researcher in the world. Yeah. The amount of research they do online, offline is unbelievable. So I think, I think they will find their sources.
You bring up a very interesting point here. I am one of the generation, people born in that generation. The thing is, when you grow up, when China is just opening up to the world, right? You never can look up to your teachers or professors or your parents who's been through a completely different age and time period for advice. They've never gone through what you're going through. So in a way, the generation gap between people born in the 80s and their parents is probably the biggest ever. So in that sense, what do? You look elsewhere for advice. You look elsewhere for research results.
But I also think that what she was saying is interesting, because if you as a young person are trying to find out the truth online, you're not necessarily going to trust whatever kind of a website is created by that specific company or by that planner. So seeing the results and then backing into it through a personal recommendation is a great way to find a resource.
I think to your point, about this gap, is where, many things in the society, sort of many industry evolve, as it goes along. But if you look at the wedding planning, as a kind of a specialism, it has come out so quickly, within such a short time, and that is fueled by that gap. So there was this need, and whether people fully trust, the planner out there, that's a different story. But the need is there, That's why it just come up,
There's a reality show called If You're the One. Have you seen that? When we talk about this, there is one case that we have to bring up, Ma Nuo, who actually said the famous quote, I would rather cry at the back of a BMW than to smile on the back of a bicycle. So Chinese marriages used to be arranged, as Richard Berger pointed out in his book. But what is driving marriage nowadays? Is it romance or is it practical issues? There are people who say that a lot of Chinese women are simply looking at men with a better salary, a Western car, and an apartment. What do you guys think?
I think maybe every woman are looking for a rich man who is good looking and also have high salary and also a large apartment. But as an editor from a wedding industry, I have to say that we have looked at thousands of real wedding stories, and from the images you can find that if they are in love or not. And what decides a wedding good or not, it is not only the money, it's also if you are in love. If you are in love, you can look at their eyes. If they are looking at each other very sweet, and if they are happy, no matter it is a large wedding or it is small, but you have to say that with love, this wedding is a perfect one.
I think you're right, but I also think that it's a bit of a self-selective group on the website. You know, maybe people who are more happily married and feel proud of what they've achieved are more likely to share this type of experiences and go public.
Yeah. I had a chat with two persons at the same time. One is born in the 70s and one is born in the 80s. And in that conversation, I realized that for the person in the 70s, the wedding is really a commitment, you know, to a new phase of life. They really see that as symbolic as a new phase of life. For the person, I mean, this is it can sound quite generalizing, but you know, that's my conversation. The 80s person, they see the wedding itself as just a part of the journey of love. You know, it's like, oh, in my pursuit of love and romance in my life, wedding is a necessary part of it. Whereas it's less about the next chapter in my life, you know. And I thought that that's quite interesting, because I think back to earlier you asked about some of the rituals like Dong Fang and all this. And also you see that some of the rituals still take place during the wedding, but you can see that it's different level of sacredness being treated with. So for the 70s, you know, when they get married, when they do things like roll the red dice on the bed, they really feel that, you know, that will bring them something. Whereas for the 80s, they're doing it sometimes because the parents tell them to, because the wedding planners say, you know, and they see it as well, you know, it's quite interesting, quite fun, but they don't take it with that kind of sacredness. So that's why I think the action and the meaning behind, you know, is different.
I think it's also somewhat inevitable to kind of equate marriage with finance at some point, because China is the largest consumer story of our time, and anyone that's grown up from the 1980s onward understands their power as consumers. And the reality is that there is a very large gender gap. In China, there's an enormous gender imbalance, and what that creates is a very tight marriage economy where women have maybe a tendency to equate a value with being outnumbered.
Let's get a question from one of our viewers. Sheila Wong asks, since China now has millions of bachelors with limited hopes of finding a wife, what do marketers need to know about marketing to these demographics?
I think that really what marketers need to understand is that this is a group of men that are really aspiring to marriage. Whether or not they actually are able to achieve that goal, really what's required at this phase is giving them tools. So maybe that's in marketing, and maybe that's also in product development, that will help them feel better and more competitive and more complete in themselves. I think that there's a wide open space for creating what the modern man is going to look like in China. And part of that picture might include a wife, and part of that picture might not. So it's really about creating those two images.
Mary, Christine, and Tingting, thank you for being on Thoughtful China. That wraps it up for today. Be sure to subscribe to us on Tudou and YouTube. You can also follow us on Weibo and Twitter, and join our LinkedIn group. See you again.